All right, we are recording now. And CCE is actually a public agency. And our role is actually to provide electricity purchasing power to the Central Coast. We look forward to sharing our organization with you, and we look forward to any questions that you might have. As NEM customers, we know that you always are ahead of the curve with information, and we look forward to the Q&A session. All right, next slide. All right, this is our agenda, just an overview for this evening. And so a little bit of housekeeping. Please use, as Jenna's putting in the chat, please use the Q&A section for your questions. When you put your icon on the screen and you scroll down or scroll up, there's a Q&A section. Touch that, it will open up a box, and that's where you ask your questions. There's also a chat section. Jen and I are going to use the chat section where we're going to drop in information for you to share and take a look at. So we want to keep Q&A questions in the Q&A and information for you in the chat section. So please ask all your questions in the Q&A. That's the housekeeping. We will also ask, you can use the Q&A and type your questions in. We're going to hold the questions to the end of the webinar because we have quite a bit of information in the presentation, which may answer your questions. And so we promise we will actually have a Q&A section at the end of this presentation. Next slide. So a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar is specifically focused and most helpful to customers who are actually enrolled in wind, solar, or battery storage customers. You're going to note in this webinar that we have kind of a mix of enrolled, which current customers, for customers that are like for our NEM customers in PG&E territory, and also the enrolling customers that are actually in Carpinteria, Goleta, and unincorporated Santa Barbara. So when we show some of the bill examples, you're going to see that they're actually on a PG&E bill from an existing NEM customer rather than an Edison bill, but you'll be able to understand how they fit together. And so we want to let you know that it's going to be a mix of information, but all our NEM customers are enrolling in monthly billing coming this January. Thus, we have a presentation this month and another one next month with this information for all of you. Next slide. So this is who we are. Central Coast Community Energy is a locally controlled public agency that provides community aggregation. So we're called a CCA is the term we're called. And we have electricity purchasing power. And so this service is known as a CCA. And what we do is we actually procure power from clean and renewable resources on behalf of our residents. And so CCAs were created because communities wanted local control over their electricity sources and prices. So if you have a home or business in other parts of Central Coast, you may have heard of us under the name Monterey Bay Community Power. All right, that was our previous name. But as we expanded across the Central Coast into San Luis Obispo County and Santa Barbara County, we changed our name to more accurately reflect the region that we serve. Next slide. So this slide coming up, this shares how we work with both Edison and PG&E and what you can expect in your community is served by our agency. I'll discuss the resources that are available to you as a customer, and I'll cover some of our frequently asked questions. We've allocated plenty of time to answer your questions at the end of the presentation, and so we do ask that you actually use the Q&A feature to ask your questions. And we'll answer them both. We can answer them online while they're coming through, and we'll also read quite a few of them out loud so you can actually hear the questions. Next slide. All right, so did you know that CCAs actually serve 11 million customers in California and over 200 communities across California? And so we're established under what's called a joint powers agreement, okay, for the purpose of actually procuring energy. And so we enable communities to actually, we purchase energy, and then the revenues are moved into the community rather than an investor-owned utility. And so what happens is we are rapidly as CCAs transforming the energy sector across California as customers continue to want to be served by CCAs. And so as a CCA, you end up being served in a partnership. So if you're in PG&E, PG&E still handles the grid and the transmission, but the electricity is by us. And so you get the benefit of both of us being very focused on the skills that we bring to the table. We, as a CCA, were formed in 2018, actually before that, but it takes a bit for us to actually get formed, to actually reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That's part of our mission statement. You'll see our website information. We have a lot of this information on our website about what our mission is, what our goals, and how we actually serve our local communities. And so we promote long-term electric rate stability and energy security, while also reducing reliance on fossil fuels. And then also by the revenue coming back into the community, our goal is to stimulate our local community. Next slide. So we actually serve 33 jurisdictions made up of cities and counties across the Central Coast, from Santa Cruz all the way down to Santa Barbara County. So we are the largest geographic CCA in California. At the current time, we do not serve unincorporated San Luis Obispo, though we serve the city, all the cities in that area. And in Santa Barbara County, North Santa Barbara County is actually PG&E service territory. South Santa Barbara County is actually in Edison territory. So we cover the breadth of the Central Coast. Next slide. So this is an example of how a CCA works. All right, so CCAs offer communities an opportunity to join together to choose how to actually procure their energy. So CCCE procures the energy and puts it into the grid. So we buy the power and it's delivered to you via the transmission lines, PG&E or Edison, okay, as a cleaner, competitive alternative to your existing utility energy. A city or county joins us to gain more control over their electricity needs for their residents and to provide economic and environmental benefits to the local community. So we procure the energy, it's delivered via the PG&E lines and then given to you, the customer. We are one of 13 CCAs just in PG&E territory, and there are also a handful of CCAs in Edison territory. And so the piece of information I like is that by the next year, 50% of the customers in the state of California are going to be served by CCAs because of our ability to actually procure and bring the benefits to the communities. So the revenue stays local and helps keep your electricity rates lower while also funding energy programs that we're going to talk about that you actually can participate in. Next slide. So we are a public agency formed by the JPA documents. So we don't answer to stakeholders, we actually answer to our 3 boards. So we have a policy board that makes up the large organizational decisions. That is actually like elected officials. Our operations board does the financial and legal affairs, and that's made up of city and county administrators. So we're boots on the ground who actually are hearing what their communities need and bring that information back to us when they participate in the operations board. You'll see that our board meets 4 times, 10 times, and then the advisory council meets 7 times. We are, as a public agency, managed under the Brown Act. You will find all this information on our website. All our meetings are public, all our board meetings and the CEIC are public, and we encourage you to participate. More information can be found on our website. We would share this information in the chat box. So what are we proud of? What have we been doing since we started in the Central Coast? So what you're seeing is local choice. All right, you have a choice of a clean offering, you know, a 3C choice offering, okay, or a 3C prime offering. Either one of them is getting us to the path of renewable. We'll talk where we're heading in the next couple of slides. We bring money to the local community, and what you'll see is energy programs. We've invested 12 million so far in energy programs. We're going to invest, we already starting investing our programs for this next 21-22 year, as our calendar year is October 1st. In May and June of last year, when COVID hit, we actually spent $50 million giving back benefits on the bills to every one of our customers. In benefits, we gave a 50% discount on the May bill and a 50% discount on the June bill in generation. And we used that money out of our rate reserve fund to bring it back. That's what the money is for, is to bring it back into the community and to keep our community vital and safe. We contract with local vendors. We pay attention to of making sure that the money is spent locally. We have 38 full-time employees, both in Monterey and San Luis Obispo. And the other piece that's really important as a business, we are the first CCA in California to receive an A rating from S&P. So you'll see that we've got the rate stabilization fund. That's what we use for rate stability. We started with a loan in 2018. That loan was paid off in 6 months, and we're very proud of that. We're very fiscally responsible when we pay attention to how the money is spent back in our communities. We have a mission focusing on clean energy. And so we're moving towards clean energy much quicker than our local utilities. And so currently we are procuring what I would say renewable resources across the Central Coast, both battery storage, wind, and other projects. And as businesses, we see our businesses reaching out to us to understand how they participate in something like that. Next slide. So the other part of the bucket, when I talked about putting back into the local community, is we create energy programs. So this is a suite, Jenna calls it, I think, our rainbow suite of energy programs of the different things that we create that you can actually participate in. One of the benefits of being served by us means that you actually are served by Edison or PG&E and by 3CE, and you can participate in both programs. So quite often you can stack rebates, all right? And so we craft these programs. We actually make sure you should, so if you go to our website and sign up on our newsletter, you get this information coming out about what programs are available. And that revenue, the energy program money, is put back into the community. That means that you get rebates on getting an electric vehicle, leasing or purchasing, maybe actually putting a new panel in your garage for your electric vehicle. New construction that's being built that wants to go all electric actually benefits for them. And so you're seeing a wide range of programs that our communities have said, this is important to us. Please craft this so we can actually take advantage. At the top of this slide is the agricultural component. Most people don't know that 30% of our customers in the Central Coast are actually ag customers. So we serve a large portion of the customers that actually feed California. And so we're paying attention to making sure that they're involved in the program, both the ag owners who are actually growing, but also the farm workers that are actually working there, making sure that they can actually participate in our programs too. So like I said, we listen to actually what is important to in our communities, and it's a range or a suite of programs across. All right, next slide. So this is how we're moving towards renewables. So currently, as of today, our goal is by 2025, that's only a few years from now, we're going to be 60% clean and renewable. We already have those contracts written and signed, and those projects are coming online, both local and also projects that are around the Central Coast that actually provide the energy into the grid that's clean and renewable. All right, this is 5 years ahead of the goal for all of the utilities in the state of California. And our long-term goal is to be 100% renewable by 2030. And that is 15 years ahead of California's goal. And so what happens is we do this and we move down to the 100% renewable. That means reduced operating costs because you don't have multiple different kinds of actually resources, and allows us to get more affordable and stable rates that comes back into the communities again. It shows up on your bill. Next slide. So just a little teaser, if you're interested in an electric vehicle, okay, we have just opened as of this morning the Electrify Your Ride. So this is everything from leasing or purchasing electric vehicles, both for you or your business or your city. It's actually for charging stations, so both at your business or potentially at in front of your apartment building. And electric bikes we just added in. There's a really nice incentive for electric bikes. and an even nice little extra bump if you actually buy the electric bike local. Okay. And so just an example of how we craft a program that has multiple pieces in it that allows you to actually participate with something that actually makes sense for you, your business or your family or your kids with an electric bike. Next slide. So now on this next slide, we're actually going to go to definitions. As you are NEM customers, I'm going to make the quick assumption that most of you know these definitions, but we have a tendency in our business to talk in acronyms. So NSC or IOU and things like that. And so you're allowed to actually throw into the Q&A box. If I use an acronym that I didn't explain, type it in and say, hey, what does NSC mean? And we'll actually answer the question, because you're asking, not just asking for you, you're asking for everyone who's attending. So please feel free to use the Q&A for that. We're also going to make sure that this webinar gets posted on our website, so you'll be able to go back and look at it if you wish. Next slide. So we have a range of customers. You can see there's a range of customers that actually are NEM customers. Most of our solar residential customers. We do have a range of commercial and even quite a few ag customers. Because of the ag customers, as they work, in the morning to the late afternoons, they bring the produce in and they have to chill it. Our ag customers are actually really proactive in making sure that they can address their energy uses, or for their pumps or all sorts of other stuff. And so kudos to our agriculture community that actually has solar at their facilities. So if you're a wind customer, a solar customer, or even have battery storage, what's going to happen is the actual reason for this presentation, besides introducing you to us, okay, if you're enrolling, is to say that we're transitioning to monthly billing as of January 2022, this coming January. That's really the topic of this presentation, which we're going to continue to go into. And so you'll have received notices about service with us in your bills, okay? But what's happening is all of our NEM customers are actually shifting into monthly billing coming this January. So that's the topic of what's coming up. Next slide. So this is an example of the current NEM structure. You have you're billed annually, you have a net surplus. If you overgenerate, net surplus is for those who actually have put more into the grid than they use at their house or business. Net user and net generator. So that's exactly do you use more or do you actually generate and put back into the grid? And then normally on your bill, you're billed for charges, okay? Or if you're a net generator, you get a bill credit. So that's the current structure. You're used to the current structure, you're used to the annual true up and such. That's what we're shifting away from just a tiny bit, all right? And why are we doing that? So currently on the NEM billing structure, you're billed annually for your electricity usage. Nope, go back one slide. And what happens is the usage is documented each month, okay, but payment is not required. And then once a year, you get an annual true-up bill and your account is trued up. Depending on when they hooked you up to the system, you get your annual true-up bill, okay? This will continue. You will continue to get an annual true-up bill as we shift to monthly, okay? But what happens is most of our customers, 95% of our customers actually use more electricity. They're net users, okay? They use more electricity in a month than they generate. So what happens is when we shift to monthly, you're going to see, okay, a bill show up on the bill every month, okay? When you actually on this current structure, when you got only trued up once a year, some of our customers had some quite substantial bills that they then had to pay in 1 month to the utility. And so what we're doing is we're pulling away from that to actually make the billing more consistent across the term so that our customers don't have to come up with that huge check when the annual true up occurs. All right. For customers who actually generate more, you'll still end up with a net surplus compensation, NSC credit, okay? And in this current structure, you usually just at the end of the year, you could easily use the NSC for next year's bill and kind of spend that money away, or you could actually ask and we would mail you a check for that. And so that still occurs. All right, now we go to the next slide. Where are we going? This is the goals of why we're shifting. Number one, the bulk of our commercial customers actually already are on monthly because they had such substantial true ups. There was a request to actually eliminate the large year-end true ups. And so we're moving that across so that all our customers actually get to benefit from that. The second is we really want, as a CCA, one of our goals is for you to see what's happening on your bill, okay? And how are you charging, how are you using your energy, and how you're not using your energy. And so that visibility, that more clear monthly charge allows you to actually make an adjustment. Let's say you left something on, or you were, you had a bunch of people come over for vacation holidays at your house for a month or something, so that you're using a lot of electricity. What happens is if you see that on your monthly bill as the bill comes in, it allows you to adjust quickly and not actually get harmed or have a big bill at the end of the true up. So that's the goal for that. The other is we've added some flexibility for the credits. So for the actually 5 or 10% that actually generate or over generate and put in the grid, you get a little bit more flexibility in that. Okay. Now moving into this next year, NSC, all of the utilities and the CCAs set their own NSC rate. We've always paid more than PG&E and Edison on our NSC, and we will continue to do that. It looks like next year's NSC rate will be halfway between wholesale and retail. So it's right in the middle, okay? All right, and for some of our customers who have legacy rates, that most of you don't know, NEM 1.0, 2.0, all that kind of stuff, that's a lot of, again, I'm back in at acronyms. You can keep your legacy rates. They can remain, so they don't change. We don't set your rates, just so you know. Your rates are set at the utility. Remember, we're only a portion of the bill. We're only the gen portion of the bill. And so we're not actually touching the actual rate setting for your system. All right, next slide. So this is the new structure. We transition to monthly billing. So what's going to happen is at the end of this year, everyone's going to true up. All right, all our NEM is going to true up. We actually, most of you don't know, we've been bringing in our NEM customers for months now, okay? And we just have a hand, this little small portion left. Everyone's truing up at the end of the year. It trues up in January on your meter read date. When you look at your bill, you can see when it goes from one date of the month to the end of the month to the next month. That's usually your meter read date, okay? And so that kind of gives you an idea of what day of the month they read your meter, all right? Then what will happen is the true up occurs, and in February, the monthly billing begins. So because we're going to true everybody up at the end of this year, at December of next year, okay, is when the NSC comes out. So you'll either get the rate, actually not wholesale rate, you get the NSC rate or the bill credit on the, okay, sorry, I forgot to change the wholesale. All right, and then let's see, what else do I want to say? So in the shift to monthly billing, what's going to happen is I'm going to show you some bills in just a moment. It means you will not have a large true up, okay? And so if you overgenerate each month, there's no payment due. You'll see the credit on the bill, okay? And then that credit will apply to next month's, because not everybody overgenerates every month, okay? So the credit applies and it can be used for the next month's bill. That makes it a lot smoother. At the end of the month, when you overgenerate, there'll be no payment due. Oh, sorry, I just already said that was duplicate, okay? And so you're still going to have the annual true up. And let's go to the next slide. I think I'm too much information here. I'll take a breath. How's that? All right. So here's an example. So again, when we talk about it, we're only a portion of the bill. So this is an example of how we show up on a bill, and you'll see that we're about a third, maybe 30 to 40% of the bill, okay? And the rest of it's actually PG&E for the distribution, for the billing, for the grid, for the meters. Everything else is in that bucket. And so as a joint PG&E or Edison and CCE customer, we will show up on page 1 of the bill. You'll see us show up in the bill. You still only get one bill, but you now start to see us, okay? And you start to understand how much does your electricity really cost, where before you really didn't know how much it was because it was all tucked into just one number on the bill, All right, so you're still going to only get one bill. The generation charges are billed by us and they show as a separate line item. So for new customers, like in Goleta, Carpinteria, or unincorporated Santa Barbara, we will start showing up in your February when the bill shows up, okay? But a lot of our customers in PG&E territory that are also on this presentation, you're used to seeing us already on your bill. You know we show up. The other thing to remember is we match the same rates, okay? So if you're in PG&E or Edison territory, the residential commercial rates, they stay the same. They do not change. Next slide. All right, so the next few slides are going to have a lot of information on it. So this is actually, we want to remind you that you're going to continue to see your utilities monthly charge on the bill, okay? The utilities were approved to have a monthly charge. And so your utility handles your NEM. They handle the transmission lines and the distribution to your house. That's the result of this fee, okay? And then we handle the NEM electricity on the bill. And so this monthly charge will continue to show up in the bill, okay? And then this is what the bill used to look like, where you would see the information on the bill to let you know. So this is an example of PG&E bill. I did not include any Edison bills because this is an existing account that's been with us for a while. So it makes it really easy to show you what it looks like. But the same thing will actually show up on your Edison bill. All right, next slide, please. And so for the customers that actually generate credits, this will still occur each year, all right? And those credits can be actually used to offset both your generation and your Edison. So here where you see that, where you have the monthly, if PG&E charges you that $10 a month, you can use your credits to offset the gen for the next and the delivery charges on your bills, okay? So that's what I meant, being more flexible with some of these charges. So on this screen, lots of information. On the left is actually what used to happen. So you would get a bill, you'd see zero. You would see zero on your bill because nothing was being charged each month and it was accruing and accruing and accruing. So on the bottom left in the red box, it shows you how things start to add up and the customer starts to get a bigger and bigger bill because they're not watching their energy as much, okay? And so what's happening is they're going to owe that if we didn't move to monthly billing. On the right-hand side, you're going to see an example of how the bill will occur. You'll still see the delivery charges each month by the utility, but then you'll start seeing if you under-generated and you use some electricity out of the grid, you'll see a bill for that. That's for the generation that you pulled out of the grid. This bill is an example for 95% of our customers who never get the NSC. And so this is how your bill will show up. And so you're going to start seeing little monthly bills so that when the annual true-up comes, you're not going to have a $1,200 bill like on the left-hand side. So that's a reason for the shift. So next slide. So for all of our customers within Carpinteria, Goleta, and unincorporated Santa Barbara, you will enroll with us in actually January of 2020. And the reason why we're doing this, so currently, we are enrolling customers in Goleta, Carpinteria, and unincorporated Santa Barbara, but none of them are NEM customers. And they're all coming into service with us now. But because Edison mandates that you must true up, if you move from Edison to Edison CCA, then you must true up. And so rather than have a couple of true ups show up on your bill, but exceptionally confusing, your true up is why we're bringing you all in January, is because everyone will come in January and everybody trues up at the same time at the end of December. So as you move out of single bundled Edison service into Edison and CCA service, then you will true up and then you will start seeing us. So the right-hand side here, the 325, is an example of someone who we showed up on their first bill and that was their charge for their electricity usage. So that's why we're giving you some examples so you can see that it goes from the kind of the bucket where you pay nothing and then you get a big bill to seeing the small charges show up each month on the bill. And if you overgenerate one month, then remember, you can use that credit against the next month. So you don't pay on that one bill. Next slide. All right. So these are the transition dates. So it's on your meter read date. Again, if you look at your page 2, it's page 3, actually, the bill. where look at the dates, you can have a pretty good idea of when in January you're going to true up. The trues up occurs all over the week. So we can have customers, a commercial customer who actually has 2 meters and can have two different true up dates. And so all our NEM customers transition at this time. And what's happening right now is you will start seeing in the mail notices. The 60-day and the 30-day notices are showing up in your bill, letting you know that enrollment occurs in January. And then you will continue to get notices in your February and March bill so that you know that this is occurring. So, so don't toss them in the trash when you get the bill. That's what we usually do. So, but it will allow you to manage your bill on a monthly basis. Next slide. So we do have a NEM webpage, which we're updating because as we shift towards this monthly, so we continue to update it. At the bottom is actually where you can find NEM for more information on our website. All right. And so Jenna just reminded me, Buellton is actually NEM customers are also enrolling. So as we've moved throughout the Central Coast, different parts of the Central Coast have enrolled with us. You can't do all the customers at once. And so Buellton is actually coming into service with us as of January, but they're a small bucket of customers, and they will come in all at one time. Both the NEM customers and their residential and their commercial customers will all come in, and then they'll get that annual true up, and they will also shift into monthly billing. So that's kind of why we have some of the PG&E information in here too, because Buellton is actually in PG&E territory. Next slide. The other piece that's really important is you don't lose any of your benefits, okay? There are benefits called CARE or FERA or medical baseline, and there's other programs, which is a few more slides. And so we do not manage them. And so here at the bottom is PG&E's website where you can find information on the CARE or FERA. CARE is for low income, and it could be up to 30% discount on your bill. For FERA, which is more about family, it's up to 18%. And Jenna just put in the box where you can actually you'll be able to find Edison's information too. To get into one of these programs, because you're a joint customer, you actually reach out to PG&E or Edison and actually ask to apply and be in this program. All right, and so they have certain rules. So the enrollment must be done through Edison or PG&E, cannot be done through us. Because Edison and PG&E do our billing. All right, Bruce, could you put that question? Bruce, you just put a question in the chat box. Could you dump that in the Q&A? Because that's a great question. All right. And so the next next slide is we also have medical baseline. And so that is also at PG&E or Edison. And so these programs stay the same. There's all sorts of renter programs and such. And so I always say on your bill, you have an Edison or a PG&E number, that's their call center. Pick up the phone and call the call center and chat with them because they know, we all know lots of stuff. And so you may qualify for something that you didn't know about. And so our cities and our counties and stuff actually continue to actually look for and share this information out into the community about the benefits that you can participate in. Next slide. So so there's also, boy, talk about acronyms. And that one's a wonderful at the top of the slide. Arrearage management plan, boy, that's fun. So what's happening is COVID hit and a portion of our customers, both commercial and residential customers, couldn't pay their bills. People were losing their jobs, all sorts of stuff was happening. And so we worked with PG&E and with Edison to create this AMP program. It's across the state and it's a debt forgiveness. And so again, there's a 800 number here on the screen. And then when you call the Edison call center, they can talk to you about the AMP program. You can actually be a CARE and FEAR customer, okay, and still participate in this program. All right. And so what's happening is there was a lot of money building up. And so we worked with the commission and the utilities to actually start to make this money go away so that our customers would not be harmed. So this is a program that we're very actively participating in. Okay, next slide. And there are other programs, low income, so LIHEAP. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of programs, weatherization and others, energy efficiency programs. And so we continue to actually be a resource for our customers so you can actually get more information. Next slide. So tonight's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website. And on the screen, you can take a little screenshot. This is actually our call center. It'll be posted on the bill. Our call center is available to you. So if you call the call center and they cannot answer a question, if for some reason they actually kick the question then to Jenna or someone like I, and we will reach out and continue the conversation. But our call center, we actually work with them on a regular basis, so they're super informed. And so they're there to assist you. So please call the number or actually the email info@ and ask your questions, and they will make sure that you get served. And so when you call in, depending on if you're in Edison territory or PG&E territory, you get to the right section of the call center who actually knows how the PG&E rates work or the Edison rates work. All right, we are now sneaking into the Q&A section. Next slide. So I'm going to stop talking for a moment and actually, Jenna, do you want to run through some of the questions?
Sure.
Okay.
So we have one question about our rebate programs, asking if they are based on household income.
So if it's a rebate program, so it depends on the program. So let's say you wanted to buy or lease an electric vehicle. The answer is no, it's not based on your income unless you're low income. So what that means is if I'm middle income and I want an EV, I can get a rebate, okay? And I don't have to prove that it's not based on my income. But if I'm low income, there's additional benefits that we've crafted in our energy programs for our low income communities. So at that point in time, there's a little bit more discussion with the energy team about the low income, but you actually can get a bigger rebate. So do we actually, ask you to prove your income? The answer is no. That's not our style. Okay, we're looking to make sure that the customers that reach out to us that are served by us get the information so they can participate in the programs in a fair, and we are very transparent about that. I think that answered that one. Next one.
Okay. So we have someone asking that they're stating they are a net generator, a residential customer, and they're wondering what their reimbursement rate would be with Central Coast Community Energy compared to Edison.
Okay, so the net NSC, net surplus compensation, is going to be halfway between retail and wholesale. So if you go back and look at your bill, your last true-up bill, and look at what your NSC was, you can calculate out what that rate was. That would have been at a wholesale rate. That tells you the bottom of it, okay? And then the retail is just look and see what you get charged on your bill. And so that's the top. And we're in between both, okay? And so my instinct is, I think I have an idea what it is, but I don't want to say it because I don't want to be wrong. So if you want to put, you're allowed to put your information in the Q&A as a private because people can't see it. And then we can actually email you back with that answer after this, tomorrow, if you wish. Okay, because it's not, your email would not be shared with the public. All right.
Okay, when do the NEM customers from our original Monterey Bay Community Power Territory true up? So it sounds like this is someone who's been a customer with us for a while, and they're wondering when their true up will be.
So an existing customer in PG&E territory has been truing up whatever their true up was when they started being served by us. So if it was in August, then they would have been truing up in August. But because we're moving our customers into a monthly true up come January, then there will be a true up at the end of this year for you. And then what will happen is all our NEM customers, every one of our NEM customers will then all true up in December at the end of each year. So we'll all be on the same time period. So you'll never have to guess anymore. So whether you're Edison is making some of the customers true up, but in PG&E, we're making it consistent. So so there's no question about when it starts and when it stops. So you will see, depending on, let's say if you're in one city or one area, you'll see the start occur on your bill in January.
So if someone is a net generator for a particular month, will we be paying them for that month? Or would we be asking them to pay for a month that they are net users and then pay the net generation annually?
Okay, so if let's say this month I overgenerate and I have a credit, okay, that means that on my bill, there's zero that I owe. You'll still see the $10 from PG&E or Edison. That doesn't go, remember that's part of the bill, okay? But you will see a zero show up on page 1 under Central Coast, all right? If you overgenerate, there'll be a credit and you'll see a little box on there that says, you've overgenerated. That credit can be used on next month's bill, okay? So you don't have to wait to use that to the end of to when the true up comes. You actually can use the debits and credits as you move through the billing period. That's what makes this a little more flexible. Is let's say you go away on vacation and you use every month, so you get a bill every month, and then you're on vacation and everything's turned off and you come back and you've got a little credit. The nice part is that credit can be used against the next month bill, which means you get to save a little bit of that money you spent on vacation. And so that's what's fun about, that's what makes the monthly true up a little more balanced across the board, especially for those, like I said, the bulk of our customers always use. So when you occasionally overgenerate, you get that little benefit right away. You don't have to wait.
Okay. Forgive me, there's a lot in the queue and I'm trying to group them together so that the conversation is kind of linear. We have one customer wondering why we don't offer the option between monthly and annual billing.
We get some great questions from our NEM customers that really pay attention. So because we actually just do a portion of the gen, that's our portion of the bill, and we work with Edison or PG&E to do the billing. It is exceptionally difficult for us to have 50 of this and 20 of this and 30 of this. And it really is a very complex world that the energy world is. And so because the bulk of our commercial customers are already into monthly billing and it's worked out really well, that's why we chose to move our residential customers into monthly billing also. And part of it also is with the last year and a half that we've had, and some of the customers who couldn't pay their bills, especially if you had $1,000 or $1,500 show up in your true up, and you weren't planning for it. Okay. That's our goal, is to make our rates more stable and make it more fair across the board. And so that's why we're moving all the customers, because it's almost impossible to have like 10 who don't do it and 40 customers who do. And so that's why we chose to move in this direction. But great question.
Thanks, Susan. So if someone is with Southern California Edison now on a basic level, not any time of day features, and they become a Central Coast Community Energy customer, will we offer the identical plan without any time of use features?
Okay, so great. Another great question. Okay. And so NEM customers, depending on when they got their solar, actually can have what's called a legacy rate. Okay. And I want to say unequivocally, when you get notices with your bill, open them up and read them. Okay. And here's why. You can keep your legacy rates, but the utilities have been asked by the state to continue to move all of us into time of use. Okay. So there are customers who actually have legacy rates and they're in tier structure and they want to keep that tier structure because they're in tier 1 or tier 2 and they're very effective with it. You can keep that, okay? But pay attention to the information that comes in, okay? That shows up, because sometimes you'll be asked by your utility, remember, who manages the grid, if that there's a shift occurring and you can say, no, I want to keep my legacy rates, you are allowed to do that. Okay. And don't miss the opportunity. Now, that said, you're touching on a very fascinating question also, is what's happening is I keep saying that most of our customers, commercial customers, are, our NEM are in monthly. All of our commercial customers are also in time of use. Okay. And so this question that you just asked is, tiered versus time of use is kind of the difference is what I will say. And so residential customers in the state of California, across the state, are slowly being moved into time of use. In Edison territory, that will start to occur in March or April of next year. So if you're in Edison territory, okay, you will go to monthly billing in January with us. But then what will happen is in your bills, you will start seeing some notices about shifted time of use. That's when you have to pay attention and make sure you tell the utility that you want to keep your legacy rate. So that's why I always say is, NEM customers are always more informed than most of our customers, because you really pay attention to your bills. And so don't miss this opportunity to stay in your current legacy rate. We don't set the rates. Okay. And so, sorry, I got distracted. We don't set the rates. The utility sets the rates. Okay. And so, you want to pay attention to that, because they're the ones who get to control legacy or not legacy. I just saw someone put a note in the chat box. That's what distracted me, that Edison said that it was going to occur in December. She is correct. Okay. And so we've been told that it could be March or April before it occurs. But remember, you're going to get this information in your bill. Okay. You also have the call center on your bill. You get your Edison bill all the time. You call the call center and you can ask them, when are we shifting? Okay. And so you want to make sure that you pay attention to that, because you will get multiple notifications about that shift, the residential shift into time of use.
I think perhaps if Lisa's receiving a notice that says a new rate is going to start in December, that might mean that SCE is.
That's the beginning of the notices.
I was thinking that might be that they're sunsetting an older rate and rolling it into a new one.
That is possible too. There are times when,
Okay, so I'm going to have to ask everyone to redirect their questions to the Q&A. We've got 44 questions in the queue right now. So just to keep it orderly, please do not use the chat feature for asking questions at this time. Thank you.
Now, also, this is when it gets really messy, is remember that if you're in Edison territory, you actually are shifting, most of the customers are shifting into service, okay, in October, which means we show up on their bill, okay? The residential time of use is another bucket, which is the utility piece, okay? And so we've got a lot of pieces. We have to be really careful about what string we're pulling, because you guys know a lot of stuff. And so, it is possible, as Jenna said, that the utilities do close some of their rates. Again, we do not set rates. So they do, quote unquote, sunset certain rates, okay? They do shut them down. Now, that sunset may mean that you cannot actually have it at all anymore. That's not my decision, that's Edison's decision, okay? Or that sunset may be you have to ask to stay. They will tell you if you can or not. That sunset also means that any new customers can never get in. So you're now in the energy world of all the, the acronyms and time of uses and all this stuff flowing around. And so I never want to answer this type of detail questions, because it may be different for Mrs. Smith versus Miss Jones. And so I always say, call the call center, find out when the time of use is occurring, so that it's going to show up on your bill. With us, that you're going to be enrolling your NEM Okay, if you have other accounts that are regular accounts and not NEM, you've already started to be served by us. But if you have a NEM account, that doesn't come in until January of 2022. So I hope that clarifies a little bit, because there's lots of, like I said, there's lots of strings. And so call the call center. You can also call our call center. If they don't know, they will say, that's an Edison. They will tell you to call the Edison call center. We want to make sure you get the right information for the right decisions that fits your needs and your energy needs and fits what you actually chose to do, because you're ahead of the curve. You guys, put solar, moved into the solar world way ahead of other people. And so kudos to you for doing that. We want to make sure that you continue to be able to take advantages of those resources and the money that you spent. So thank you.
Yeah,
Next question.
Susan, there was a question about rates. So could you just say how our generation service rates are set compared to Southern California Edison generation services?
Okay, so there are 3 buckets on your bill when you get a bill from Edison. The first bucket is the what's called T&D. It's transmission and distribution. Think of that as the whole grid. That's the meters. That's how all the energy moves around. That's bucket 1. That's all Edison's money. On the back of your bill on page 2, there's another bucket called the program bucket. That is the commission's mandated programs and fees that all of us, whether you're served by us or somebody else, all of us pay into. That's a bucket 2. Bucket 3 is the bucket we're talking about, which is the gen bucket, the electricity bucket. Okay. And so that bucket is what we are going to show up on the bill for, only that. Okay. Now, how are rates set? In Edison territory, for someone, let's say in the city of Goleta, who actually their meter read date was October 10th. Now they're already starting to be served by us on their residential account, not NEM, just their home account. Okay. Then what happens is Edison set the rate. So they're going to be on a domestic residential rate. That's what it's called, domestic rate on the bill for them. And then what happens is we buy electricity. So if the domestic rate is, let's say, I'm just going to throw out a number, don't hold me to it, 10 cents, we will discount. So our electricity rate is the IOU rate less 2% in Edison territory. So we discount off whatever their rate is. So if Edison's rate is 10 cents, then we discount off of that. You need to be very clear that when you look at your bill, on your bill, it tells you what rate you're in. There's a thing on there that says domestic or time of use, GS, that's general service businesses. I mean, there's 75 different kinds of rates. So I never quote rates because it really depends on what rate bucket you're in, if you're commercial or something else. And so all of those are actually on the Edison and the PG&E website. You can type in rate tariff and then your head will explode because, like I said, there's 75 different rates. Now, what I'll ask Jenna to actually, I don't know if she can put in the chat box but if you go to our website, there's some drop-down boxes, and one of the drop-down boxes on the far left says accounts. And when you click on accounts, it actually drops down and it says billing. And you click on that link and that takes you to the billing page. We are a public agency. We post all our rates. You can go on there and you can find your Edison rates, your Edison 3CE rates, and you can find the PG&E and Central Coast rates. All of the current rates are posted, and if you scroll down a little farther, you can actually find our archived rates. We post everything on the website. You can go back and look at what you paid a year ago if you're in PG&E land, and then see what you're paying today. And so the reason I talked about that really funny acronym, the GS1 or all that kind of domestic or whatever on your bill, that name that shows up on your bill actually matches to the rate pay, the billing rate tariff page. And so you just go look to the Edison Central Coast billing, you look up domestic, and that'll show you the rates. Like I said, there's lots and lots and lots of information. I just went down the rabbit hole of information. So you can find it all on the website, okay, because we keep everything public. So sorry about that.
That's okay. I'll lighten the conversation and give you an easy question. So we have some people who are set up on auto pay, and they are wondering, how does billing work as a Central Coast Community Energy customer?
You still get one bill. So if you're on auto pay with Edison, you still only get one bill and you auto pay one bill. If you happen to over generate that month, then you get a credit, and it wipes out your no gen charges and also wipes out your $10 a month. You pay nothing. So everything is run through Edison or PG&E. Both those utilities do our billing for us. One bill, we just show up as line items in the bill so you can see it, more transparency. And then what happens is currently you have a page that says PG&E, charges, and then right underneath that in the next page, it'll say Central Coast Gen charges, and we'll just be slipped right in the bill. So you still make the same payments, nothing changes at all. Your auto pay stays the same.
Great. I also want to just answer one of David's questions just directly. He was saying that he was wanting to compare SCE rates. So I think, Susan, you already said that the way that we are calculating our generation charges is to subtract 2% from what Southern California Edison charges for generation services.
So that's an important point, because it doesn't feel like 2% is 2% is money. It's money in your pocket. It means less money you would pay for your electricity bill. You also get the benefit of the energy programs because you can participate in Edison's and PG&E's and ours. You also have the benefit of the revenue come back into the community. So if you're a local business, you can participate in our local vendor sign up. If you're interested in putting a charger at your local business, okay, or maybe that you own an apartment complex by some chance and you want to put a charger for your renters, okay, you can participate in the programs. Both Edison and PG&E and us have charging programs. So, it's when you think about, you're going to pay your electric bill no matter what, right? We might as well have that electric bill go to benefits that make sense for us as a community. And so that's how we crafted this. And so a good example is, if you're in, let's say, the city of Goleta, you were not served by us last year, but our customers in the city of Monterey got the 50% COVID discounts on their bills in May and June. So that's how we think about how we actually put back into the community. And so that's an excellent example of the additional pieces you get besides the 2% discount on your bill.
Thanks, Susan. So one customer is wondering if they wanted to add more panels, would the PTO go through us or through SCE? And would there still be restrictions on not generating, quote, too much, unquote, energy, solar energy?
Great question. So the Edison is the one who issues the permission to operate. PTO stands for permission to operate. So if you wanted to add more, you have to pick up the phone and call Edison and get in the queue. You could add more panels. You want to talk to the call center about, if you add more panels, what's the box that you can be in, okay? If you overgenerate, and you're served by us and them, you get part of our NSC compensation that shows up in the credits on the bill. So you have a few questions you have to ask and unfold. The other thing I would say that most people don't know is, if you've had your panels for a while and you're under one of the old legacy rates, sometimes depending on the utility, when you shift the size of your solar, you actually get ungrandfathered, and you want to make sure that, does that happen? What happens? How do your rates change? You want to ask some really robust questions, okay? Because I have solar on my home, and I have a very old system. It's probably about 6 or 7 years old. It's not that old, but it's an older system. I'm grandfathered and I'm on the tiered rate, okay? And so I'm very clear that if I mess with my solar system, like if I put in a battery in my garage, and because I would like to actually fill up my battery, I get ungrandfathered, and then I would no longer be in the tiered rate. So you want to be very, very clear about when did you, get your original PTO, how does that tie together? And you want to talk to a very clear person. I would call the call center and ask them really good questions. And I love our solar contractors, but you have to ask some very direct questions of them too, to make sure. And, feel free to call I can't speak English here, our call center if you got a question or two, you want to verify, or talk to other people in the neighborhood who have solar, because you all have much more information and awareness of how the solar system puts together and what you want to think about. And having those conversations with your neighbors helps you learn what they know and don't know, and actually makes it a tighter community that you live in. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I just want to note, because Southern California Edison and Pacific Gas and Electric continue to maintain the grid, that's why the conversation about adding solar or battery begins with them. So we have another question along these same lines. Would Central Coast Community Energy support the possibility to sell back from battery storage during grid emergencies, particularly using a Tesla Powerwall?
All right, now we have somebody ahead of the curve again here. Okay, so on a small level, at a residential level, the best benefit for you is actually the NSC, okay? I do know that there are programs at the commission level being talked about where they're starting to aggregate stuff, but we're not there today. And so I'm not going to answer that question. I do know that we have a gentleman named Tony who works with us who does biz dev, and he knows all sorts of stuff. But at a single home level, the answer is no. The NSC is actually the way that you get compensated. If they're, I do know that as a energy world, we're continuing to think about how to aggregate items, especially battery storage and such. You will see on our website, if you kind of wander through our website, you will see that we actually put out proposals, RFPs and RFQs, they're called in the business, seeking developers looking for battery storage, not at a home, but actually at commercial sites and other sites across the local Central Coast. We're looking for like a 1 megawatt site. Okay, so that's like 1,500 square feet. It's not a small site. And so we are actually adding things like that to our procurement to actually make our grid, our local grid, more stable and resilient. And we're actually this last month, we've reached out to almost all our cities, asking our cities if they have sites where we could actually put storage. And let's say maybe storage next to a hospital, or let's say a fire station or a school. That could be a community center or a critical, what we call critical facilities. So you're right at the beginning of what we're doing as we start to think about being a resource in our communities. How do we make our energy usage across the Central Coast more resilient? So thanks for asking that question, because that was outside the box.
Sure. Another great question is, this resident has their solar panels and they're billing through a third-party solar company. Will their contract change?
The answer is no. You're probably on either a lease agreement or a power purchase agreement. We call them PPAs, which is done with a company that put the solar on your house and you sign an agreement. The answer is no. Your agreement continues to stay with that company, and so it does not change.
Great. And then I'll just answer, we've had a couple people who already have an electric vehicle and they're wondering if they can still participate in the program. So I just want to say that every household is eligible to participate in the program once. So you can get a car, a charger, you can receive incentive or rebate for any panel upgrades associated with installing that charger. You can get 1 e-bike, and then if you have a business, you can reserve up to 5 of your fleet vehicles. So even if you already have a car or charger and you want to get a second one, if it's our first time receiving an application from you, please do. We look forward to supporting you with that. And all of our rebates are designed to be stackable with other programs.
All right, David, don't drop anything into the chat box. Be putting in the Q of A because you had a great question there, information. And that means I only get one e-bike rebate. Darn it. I don't get two. So maybe I'll have to come up with, yeah. But I love the idea. This is an excellent example of how we learn from our communities. We look at, the electric vehicles and how it's shifting across the California, and there's more and more starting to be more charging stations. We still need more charging stations. You need to be able to charge at home. But what we realized is if you have a house from the 1960s or 1970s, you need a panel upgrade. And so, great, I can go get an electric vehicle, but then I don't have the money to actually upgrade my panel, which is, you need an electrician for that. And so we're starting to craft our programs with these pieces that fit together. So you can actually potentially come in and get your panel upgraded and then go shopping for the e-vehicle. And you could even lease a vehicle too. It doesn't have to be a purchase. And so I love how the programs are getting more layered. So you actually get to start accessing more benefits out of one bucket. So kudos to us, I guess I should say.
So I think there's always the confusion around if the utility is setting the rate, how does that affect our prices? So could you just talk about the difference between a rate tariff and the cost of actually what we charge for generating energy?
So now we're going to get in some history. That was a good question. So the rates themselves are set by the utility. And like I said, PG&E has like 75 different rates. They're ag rates, and there's small, medium, and big commercial rates. There's transmission rates. I mean, there's all residential rates. There's all sorts of stuff. The rates are set by the utility, and it's usually based on use volume, or how many kilowatts, how much usage do you do in a month? And that kind of buckets you into what tariff what rate they're going to give you. Okay, so that's established between the utility and the commission. All right, we as a CCA establish our own rates. And so for the last few years, we've been doing utility less a discount. And what's happening is every time the utility changes their rate, when PG&E changed the rate again in January, we had to change our rates. And then they changed the rate again in March of this year. We had to change our rates again. So what's happening is we're very nimble, and we're very, very clear about making sure that we move very fast with what happens. So we pay attention to the rates. And so we are looking at the rates to see, and our board looks at the rates to see how much they can discount. So up in PG&E territory, before COVID hit, we had gone to 7% discount because everybody was, business was good and people were doing, using energy and stuff, and we'd gone to 7%. Then COVID hit, then we gave the huge discounts in May and June, and then we went back to 2%. So as what we call a CCA, we're allowed to move our rates around. They're tied to the utility, okay? But we still have a little bit of flexibility. But because I don't control the volume of how much you use, your initial rate tariff is what it's called, a rate tariff or rate schedule per meter is actually set by the utility, okay, and determined. And so that's the starting block. And then what we do is we communicate with the utility with how much we charge. And so let's say with Edison, okay, you're going to come in January, okay? We already communicate with Edison that if you're a domestic rate, here's what your rate's going to be. So when we all know what your usage is for the month of January, then you're going to be charged the kilowatt, that usage, let's say it's 2 cents or 6 cents or 10 cents, whatever it is, you're going to be charged that on the bill. So we make sure that the utility knows what our cost of the gen site is that shows up on the Central Coast portion of the bill. Okay. So we had somebody ask in the chat box, yes, we are. So if you're an Edison, you're Edison less a discount. We call it IOU less a discount rate is how the rates are set with us right now. Yes.
Okay, let's talk about opting out of Central Coast Community Energy. So what is the timeline? How do they do it? And we also have some questions about switching back and forth, but let's start with how would someone do it initially and when do they need to do it by?
Okay, We do have customers that don't want to stay with us. You're not required to. And so we like to be really transparent about it. So your enrollment time period is considered January, okay? So technically you enroll in service on your meter read date in January. And so the window of opting in, opting out, of not being in service with us is for 60 days before your meter read date. So actually, no, let's say your meter read date is January 5th. Then it would actually be November 5th is the first day you can boot yourself back to Edison. And then January, then we have February and March. So March 5th is the last day you could boot yourself back to Edison. Now, let's be really clear about that. This is the window where there's no penalty. There's no fee. It's not a penalty box. If you choose to go to Edison, go for it, okay? You may have your son work at Edison, go for it. Or you may work at Edison. You may get an Edison discount. Please, please, you pick up the phone, you call the call center, okay? And our call center, and you actually say, I want to opt out, okay? And so you say, I opt out, and we send you back to Edison, and you're only served by Edison. It is possible that if you opted out, let's say in February at some point, we may show up on your bill for a month, but then you go back to Edison, okay? And you stay with Edison. So the rates stay the same, no harm, no foul, okay? No fees charged, all right? Now, once you do that, if you go back, you cannot be served by us. Let's say in April, you want to work with us. You have to wait 6 months. So from the day you opt out and you go to Edison, let's say it was February 1st, you have to wait 6 months. The utility gets to keep hold of you for 6 months. After that, you can come back, okay? We don't charge you any fees to come back, but you're held in this little box, okay, where I can't get you back like a month later. During this 5 months, remember, we're talking November, December, January, February, March. During that enrollment window is you're kind of free to move around. But remember, none of us work at lightning speed, and we work with the utility. Edison does the billing. So don't call me on today and tell me you're going to opt out, and then call me in 2 weeks and opt back in, because it'll make us all crazy. Okay, we could do it probably, but we really want you to be thoughtful about who you would like to serve you, okay? Because we all, Edison's our partner. We're doing this on purpose, okay? And we do think that the benefits we bring make sense to actually our local communities, but you have the right to choose how you want to be served. And so because enrollment's in January, okay, for Edison, what happens is that some of our customers are uncomfortable. They say, I really want to choose. You can choose, okay? It's just that the state and the commission wanted to make sure that people like firms like us could survive. And so we got the customers, the bulk of the customers, but we as local community partners with you want to make sure that you get to choose. So I hope that wasn't too much information, because I was kind of all over the board with that answer.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Just getting organized here.
All right, somebody don't stop using the chat box, put in the Q&A. But the question is if you're a legacy rate, make sure that, it's like, when you get served by us, we know you're a legacy rate. We don't set the rates. We know your legacy, okay? And so if you're a legacy rate, then the answer is yes. Make sure that you move back. If you want to be with Edison, make sure you're within that window, okay, to keep that rate. So don't wait to the last minute to decide who you want to be with, okay? If you are served by us on January and February, your legacy rate stays. We don't change your rate, okay? But don't be moving back and forth, because it's very hard for, the utilities have millions of customers, okay? And we don't want you to lose your legacy rate, because once you're outside of the enrollment window, then things change. So don't wait for the last minute, please.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Here's a specific question. If you generate more than you use on an hour that is at a higher rate, does that hour not get charged because you generated more than you used that hour? So for someone who's on a time of use plan and over generating at certain times of the day and then not others, how is that balanced out?
All right, now we're really in the weeds.
There's a lot of weedy questions.
Like I said, the NEM customers really know their stuff. Okay. All right. So what you're saying is if you're not home during the time of use, between 4 and 9, and you're generating, okay, during that time before the sun goes down, how does that kind of tie into the whole, do I get more credit, more debit, that kind of stuff? And so the answer is I really don't want to get into discussion.
Okay, I think it's too
yeah,
late. 7
I would-
p.m. brain can't handle that one.
Well, and there's a lot of detail, and the billing is 15-minute increments and stuff. And so what I'm going to ask is if the individual who asked that question, if they would share their email, if they wish, okay, their name, well, actually, if their name's on their question, we can email them and have a communication. This is not a level of, I don't want to get into that level of detail. It's too much information. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think, give me just a minute to find a less weedy question, just so all of our, dinner time brains can.
And we're actually hitting 7:19. We're sneaking into, well, I promise we're finishing at 7:30. So I'm going to boot y'all at 7:30, just giving you a heads up. All right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So someone has solar and just received a climate credit on their bill. Will that climate credit be paid by Central Coast Community Energy in a similar structure and amount?
Okay. So a climate credit is not for NEM customer. Every customer gets it. And it's twice a year. And so if you're reading those little flyers that you get with your bill, you'll open up and it'll tell you that the climate credit gets paid usually in April and August, or, it's usually twice a year. Sometimes they change it up, and they changed up when they paid it this year. It is a mandated credit that actually is issued by the utility. So the answer is no, it's a credit on your bill. You get a set dollar amount. We don't choose the dollar amount. It's chosen at the state level. So the answer is it doesn't really affect anything. But, well, a good example, let's say you have your $10, and then you over generate that month and you get the climate credit. The answer is it's a credit on your bill, and you can use it next month against the $10, or maybe if you under generate. So the answer is yes, it's credit on your bill. It's part of the whole big bucket, but think of it being kind of on the PG&E or Edison side. Okay. So I get a climate credit, and then I always over generate because my kids are gone now. And so what happens is I always get that credit, and I'm able to use that during the course of the year. So great question, but it's not our credit. It doesn't go away. So until the state decides to make it go away, it will show up in your bill twice a year.
Okay. One customer is concerned that their SGIP application may still be in process in January.
Nothing changes. Thank goodness for you getting in the SGIP, because that was a really aggressive program. Everybody wanted to be in that. So kudos to you. No, your SGIP does not change. Okay. All we're doing, remember, is all you're doing is a portion of the gen. Okay. It has nothing to do with your SGIP rebate. Okay. Apples and oranges. So no, I do know you're probably communicating with the Center for Sustainable Energy, who's managing the SGIP. Okay. Or whoever actually helped you with that program. Just let them know that you're going to true up in January and you're being served by a CCA. That's it. Nothing else. It doesn't change that. You don't lose, no penalty box.
So I'm going to answer a programs question. We had a couple wondering if they purchased something now, like an e-bike or an electric vehicle, if they would still be able to participate in the program. I'll share what my understanding is. Susan, you can correct me. My understanding is if it's after October 1st and you submit an application, you can participate, but we will not be able to cut the check for you until we are showing up on your bill and service has been established in the month of January.
That is correct. So the rebates, we started the program effectively. We launched it today on the website, but we actually said if you bought anything from October 1st going forward, the answer is yes, we will take and give you rebates on that. But you have to be able to access our rebates. You need to be served by us. So if you chose to opt out and you were with Edison and you applied for a rebate, we wouldn't cut you a check because we don't show up on your bill. So that was an exact correct answer, is that you have to be served by us. And at that point in time, they check and in the system, and then they're like, yep, they served by us, and then they cut the check.
Okay, we have one customer, I'm going to answer this one too, asking why someone might want to opt out. Enrollment is very high with our agency, on average 95%. And so sometimes people may choose to opt out because they don't realize that they can still participate in care and fair programs. That's a really common concern that the residential customers have, and not realizing that they can still receive bill assistance as our customers. And then sometimes people work for Southern California Edison or PG&E, but I do want to note that we do also honor their employee discounts and retirement programs. And then a small portion of people don't like that they were auto enrolled, but before we came along, they only had one choice. So at least once we're established in the community, they have two choices. So those are kind of the common buckets that people fall into.
Great response. Thank you, Jenna.
Sure thing. So someone says that they might need to do some electrical panel upgrades. And I do want to note that that is covered. We do have rebates for that as part of our Electrify Your Ride program. So I hope that that's exciting news for you.
And we set it up so that it's like a one application. So if you go to the website under Energy Programs, and I think Jenna put this in the chat box, under the transportation section, there's under our energy program, there's 4 buckets where we're working 4 buckets, and transportation is one of the buckets. Click on that bucket and it'll bring up the it's called Electrify Your Ride. And that's for the vehicles, the panel upgrades, for the chargers, all sorts of stuff. And so we're making it as simple as possible for you. You can take a look at that and start the application.
Okay. And just to answer another quick question, I would not worry about the funds running out by January. Our program's budget for this year, so the last 3 years, we have reinvested $12 million into our incentive and rebate programs over the last 3 years. And this year we have $14 million advocated across all of our programs. So I would not worry about the Electrify Your Ride program being fully subscribed by the time you join us in January. But I appreciate that is a really valid question.
And also, if you're looking at a vehicle, so the panel upgrades, the panel upgrade is kind of just us. But if you're looking at a vehicle, make sure you go ahead and look at all the other rebates are out there, because sometimes the air quality boards or the vehicle dealership itself or other programs actually have other vehicle rebates. And so our goal is to actually have our rebates be stackable. So if there was a, air quality carb rebate, and then a dealer rebate, and then our vehicle rebate, you can stack them all. And so if someone's, let's say, a low income customer, we've seen some low income customers get rid of 50% of the cost of their vehicle by stacking the rebates. but it takes a little bit of work on your behalf, but they're out there because California is really looking at electric vehicles.
Okay, Susan, we just have a few minutes left. So does a credit, if someone overgenerates, can they use that credit on the generation and the distribution charges?
The answer is yes. Great question. The answer is yes. You're allowed to use it on both sides of the bill. So that's one of the benefits that we've changed. It's not just on the gen side. If you have the $10, and you overgenerate, you're allowed to use it on both sides of the bill. Yes. And
Okay.
whatever credit is left can be used for the next month. So good question.
And then if they're accumulating a credit for a long time, can they request a check, or does it need to continue to carry as a credit?
That's the reason we kept the annual true up. Is remember, they're going to technically true up in January when they come in, right? End of December, January. And then their first true up with us is going to be December of 2022. At that point in time, if they have a credit, if they're over generator, they have a credit, there'll be a limit on, I think it's 200 or something for residential. They can request a check to be mailed to them, or they can actually say, kick it into next year and they can use it into the next year's bill. So they're going to have a choice on their bill at the end of that's why we're keeping the true up. So you have a time period where there's kind of like, okay, we're getting the snapshot, we're done for the year. Do I want to check, or do I, what am I going to do with this credit? So good question. All right, we are at 7:29. We thank you for attending tonight. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for being out there, being ahead of the curve, and actually participating and putting solar in your homes and your businesses and making a difference. Okay. We know that there is financial benefits to putting solar and participating in this. And we want to say kudos to you. Because you're always informed, you ask great questions. We really look forward to serving you. We look forward to bringing the benefits to your community. We will post this on the website because we did record it. Please feel free to reach out to our call center, okay? We'll post the presentation also. And for those of you that put your email in the Q&A, we will pull the Q&A. So we will then respond back to you in the next couple of days if you left that in there. And get to answer to your, very specific questions. So, and thank you to Jenna for holding this space for me and making this all work. We really appreciate the time you've given us this evening. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I just want to say, for anyone who has outstanding questions, we will try to address them directly. And then you can also always call our call center. So really appreciate everyone's engagement tonight.
Good night, everybody. Take care.